Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about one of Palantir SPACs, Wejo, one of the SPACs that I think gets the most credit because it's in the electric car big data space, that just did an announcement with Microsoft. Now, this news came out on January 4th. I wasn't able to cover it at the time, but still pretty relevant in my opinion because we need to cover what's going on with the SPACs. If you're a Palantir shareholder, you need to know what's going on with the SPACs because like the SPACs kind of control a little bit of our destiny. We need to make sure these SPACs don't freaking fail. And second of all, it's Microsoft. Now Microsoft, I believe, was an early investor in Wejo along with Palantir, but like Microsoft being partnered with Wejo on this endeavor to me is big news. And the reason it's big news is because it's Microsoft. You're talking about big data, connected vehicles. Microsoft doesn't really have a space in the car ecosystem, right? Google's trying to do self-driving AI stuff. Tesla's obviously doing it. Microsoft is kind of like that boring old, company that just produces good revenues, produces good profits, but it doesn't actually it's not the most sexiest thing in the world. And for them to be partnering with a pretty sexy startup in Wejo that's working with a pretty sexy company in terms of Palantir, pretty big news to me. So they are calling this Wejo Neural Edge processing. It is a processing platform that is in collaboration with Microsoft to optimize autonomous vehicle communication. So let's talk a little bit about what they're doing. Let's read a little bit off the press release. They say today over 200 million vehicles are connected, meaning they emit data from over 100 sensors every 1 to 3 seconds to the cloud. And these sensors are all on the vehicles as those vehicles are driving. The number will grow to over 400 million by 2025 because more and more electric vehicles that have these sensors, these IoT Internet of Things sensors are going to be popping up. The value of the constant data stream is the ability for vehicles to communicate with each other, with their manufacturers and other stakeholders. For example, sharing traffic and weather alerts, the condition of vehicle components, and even automating vehicle features such as safe braking on wet roads. This is where we actually get smart cars that are autonomous, that are the next evolution of what mobility looks like. However, by performing all data processing and filtering in the cloud, the sheer volume of data emitted risks reducing the benefits they can provide to drivers in cities and increases the cost of collecting and processing that data. And that's where Wejo's new solution comes in. Wejo's Neural Edge is basically this integrated operating system that allows the processing of all those millions and billions of tons of data in one place to be able to make sense of them and to be able to actually control the flow of data. So they write that Wejo's migration to Azure as the sole platform for its scaled data offering is already well underway. And now Wejo is developing its patent-pending edge technology. So the Microsoft partnership obviously makes a lot more sense because Microsoft is Microsoft offers cloud computing just like Google and Amazon do, and Microsoft offers it through Azure. AWS is obviously the leader. Google Cloud is up there, but Microsoft is also doing a pretty good job. So Microsoft obviously is partnering with them if Wejo is using Azure to be able to actually do all this cloud computing. So all of these millions of pieces of data that go through Wejo and then have to go into a cloud, that's Microsoft Azure's business that's ultimately doing that. By throttling the data at the edge of the vehicle, Wejo Neural Edge reduces the data flow to only 20% of its maximum, while at no point reducing the quality and potential of that data for real-world application, such as vehicle-to-vehicle communication. That's a kicker, right? In combination with Microsoft, they're able to reduce the data load, the processing fee, or the processing time for the data to actually get to the cloud by 20% without reducing the quality of the data and the ability for cars to communicate with each other. Now, this matters because let's say you have 2 electric cars on the road and they're driving, and one of them has to make a left and one of them has to make a right, or one of them has to wait till the other one makes a left in order for them to cross the traffic light. That doesn't happen unless there is a ton of data on those cars that can sense when something is happening, play out all the scenarios, and then intelligently realize that we need to do this scenario in this moment. If the Wi-Fi fails or the connectivity to the cloud fails or the quality of the communication fails, it's a matter of life and death. So this stuff is really not stuff to play around with. And that's why this company could have a massive impact if they actually innovate and solve this problem. Richard Barlow, CEO, says, Wejo Neural Edge is the next technology that we are proudly building with support from our strategic partners, GM, Microsoft, and Palantir. First, we built Wejo Adapt, which blends data from any make of a vehicle at incredible scale. So any vehicle can just use their software and be able to have their data simulated. The Edge solution accelerates the mobility revolution, automating critical benefits such as autonomy, safer roads, and even faster parking. Pretty interesting stuff. Their ability to actually integrate this data at scale through the previous products and now to the new products, and the processing becoming a lot more faster in order to actually execute these things seems to be like there's a market opportunity here. Now, final quote from Shyam, Sankar, our boy from Palantir, says that our ongoing partnership with Wejo is focused on the most complex and critical challenges facing the future of mobility. And that's not an understatement, what he's saying. These are complex, critical problems with mobility. They're trying to solve them. What Wejo is building atop Palantir Foundry, including their cutting-edge neural edge technology, is a testament to the depth of their vision, speed of execution, and power of combining their technologies. So What does this mean at the end of the day for Palantir? Number one, this is phenomenal news because for Wejo to partner with Microsoft means that Microsoft believes in their vision. Microsoft is giving them the cloud computing necessary for them to execute their vision. And Microsoft is a believer in what Wejo could potentially do. When you have a multi-trillion-dollar company on your side helping you do something, you tend to have a better chance of actually getting stuff done, right? Because you just have the resources and critical support to ultimately execute. On top of that, when Wejo's partnering with Microsoft, that means they're getting access to a lot more data and data capacity for all these other car manufacturers that need to work with Wejo, right? So GM, Ford, Volkswagen, Mercedes, all of these companies that are ultimately going to lose to Tesla unless they innovate in the electric smart autonomous vehicle market. Apple even perhaps, right? Apple likes to do everything themselves, but if Wejo gets as big as they want to be by 2028 when Apple finally releases the car or even introduces the car, then there's a world in which there's a combination in which Wejo can work with Apple. Wejo is trying to become the Palantir foundry for connected vehicle data. So what Palantir is for data in every single business, like healthcare, drug discovery, blockchain, energy, all this stuff, Wejo is trying to do that just for car manufacturers, charging stations for electric vehicles, smart cars and electric cars being able to communicate with each other, autonomous vehicles. They're trying to be the one-stop solution for all car manufacturers to use their software and integrate their very complex technology into their devices, which is the first product they built out, right? Any car could connect with Wejo. And then Neural Edge is their next product to be able to process that data at a much more efficient way. If Wejo can become the Palantir foundry of cars over the next decade, that's a big deal for Palantir because Palantir not only is partnered with Wejo very intimately, they also own an equity stake in Wejo. And when I mean intimately, I mean I did a video that Palantir actually released an entire electric vehicle charging station operating system, meaning electric vehicle charging stations are going to start popping up over the next 10 years. They're going to need software to be able to build those charging stations, to be able to maximize revenues and keep in line demand and work with network operators because building a charging station is not that easy as building a gas station. And Palantir Foundry is going to be the software in combination with Wejo that actually allows those electric vehicle charging stations to communicate with one another from like New York to California. So Palantir knows Wejo really well. If I were to say any of the 14 SPACs that Palantir works with the most intimately, it would be Wejo. And for Wejo to get this partnership with Microsoft and potentially actually get to the next level of processing data as fast as they can without giving up quality, that can be a really big thing for Palantir at the end of the day. The goal here is the future of mobility, right? The goal here is the future of electric vehicles, future of smart vehicles, future of cars that use data to ultimately operate. If Palantir is able to have a partner that is able to be the Palantir foundry of the electric car smart data market, and they're able to bring in some really big revenues, and that's able to go back to Palantir, then that's a big opportunity, right? And as long with the new product offerings that Palantir could unveil with combination with Wejo, because they just did that with the electric vehicle charging stations. When this news came out January 4th, Wejo's stock price went up 45%. It's down now because the stock market's stupid and crazy and the macro economy has all this inflation and supply chain nonsense and inflation's at 7%. So a lot of stuff is going on, interest rates, all that stuff. But when this came out, their stock price jumped really high, right? Almost 50%. So it's good news. I think there's going to have to be more catalysts. Obviously, we're going to have a rotation from value back into growth in order for the stock to actually do well. I don't own any of Wejo. I feel more comfortable buying more Palantir because I see more upside in Palantir. And if Palantir owns a bit of Wejo, then I get exposure to Wejo, which is why Palantir is kind of like an ETF in some way, right? Because all of these SPACs that I've covered, right? Cellularity, they're using placenta-based cell therapy to help people live and discover new drugs. Adtherin, digital advertising technology. Wejo, Babylon Health, and a bunch of these other SPACs that Palantir is working with. Sarcos Robotics, which is creating the real life Iron Man bodysuits. You kind of get exposure to all of these companies potentially being big, which is the goal of an ETF, right? You're not betting on one company, you're betting on this combination of companies, and if one goes down, the other one goes up, and it balances itself out. Palantir is kind of like an ETF internally because all these companies are using their software, so Palantir is getting some revenue from them. And all these companies, if they get big, they're going to keep using their software, which is going to increase their revenue. And as they get big, the equity stake that Palantir owns in each of these data-driven disruptors is going to come back to Palantir. So could be really good news for Palantir over the long haul. Let me know what you guys think. Wejo partnering with Microsoft to create their Neural Edge advanced processing data software. Let me know if you guys own any of the stock and if you're interested in Wejo at all. My name is Mitt. Thank you guys for watching. Looking forward to reading the comments. I'll see you in the next one.